It's been less than 2 months since President Barack Obama announced the U.S. would begin to normalize relations with Cuba, and things are already opening up in what some have dubbed the Cuban Thaw.
Right, the move eases more than 50 years of tensions between the two nations. For more on how it's been received, we turn to Patricia Dalmasy, host of Foro Interamericano for the VOA Spanish branch. Talking about the opening up of U.S.-Cuba relations. In the past, we've seen Cuban Americans very divided on U.S.-Cuba policy. Has it been the same this time?
I don't think it's the same. I mean, we see surveys, maybe the latest one like 3 months ago, and by and large, the Americans support the measures taken by the president, and the Cuban Americans, let's say in Miami, in Little Havana, is divided. But more and more you see changes towards supporting the president.
And what's at the root of those divisions?
You can see people from the old school, still from the Cold War era, that are not happy that the Castros are going to get money from this easing of sanctions right now. And there is some evidence to that. You know, they will be making millions of dollars through tourism and through goods, the exchange of goods.
What about within Cuba? How are people feeling?
In Cuba, it's mixed as well. You can see dissidents, opposition leaders that did not want to meet with Roberta Jacobson because they said that they're not being represented in the talks. However, State Department as well as the Cuban government have been saying that this is a start. They need to start this way. It's more official talks, and the dissidents are not part of neither government.
You host a program, Foro Interamericano, and you focus on analyzing all these issues that come up that affect Latin America. So what have analysts told you about this?
Basically what they're saying is we have to wait and see what's going to happen, what really concrete steps is the Cuban government going to take. They've been at this situation in the past, sort of, not as drastic as they are now, but they need to wait and see to really see that the government is actually improving.
What about Congress? You know, that is something that we've all been watching, the way that lawmakers have reacted to this, because there have been some divisions there as well.
Well, in Congress, all the Cuban American, congressmen and congresswomen with Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, either Democrat or Republican, the fact that they have ties to Cuba put them against, or they've been critical of the Obama administration. Basically, the main source is human rights abuses by the Cuban government. We saw in December, this was announced in December 17th. Well, the whole month of December, there was a lot of repression from the government, and they put a lot of dissidents in jail. They have the 53 dissidents, supposedly, they were freed, but some studies, some organizations have put that number in over 8,000 political prisoners.
So one of the big central issues here that a lot of people are focusing on is the embargo. Do you think we're going to see it lifted anytime soon?
I think it's going to be very hard to lift the embargo because it is by the law, Helms-Burton law. The president cannot actually lift it. So he's done as much as he can within the executive powers. So it has to be Congress. And right now, with the Republicans, domineering both houses, and the Cuban Americans really being active in Congress to not let that happen, I see it that is going to be very difficult.
It's going to be tough, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, finally, as a journalist, you've been covering Latin American issues for years. What was your reaction when you heard this announcement from President Obama, and what was the buzz in your newsroom?
Well, it was surprise. It was shocking, but at the same time, since we cover Latin American news, we saw that President Barack Obama had made that promise. He didn't say what, but he said that he wanted in 2008 some change to the U.S. policy towards Cuba. So it was, yes, a surprise the time it came, but also somehow expected.
And what is also expected is this transition is not going to be smooth sailing the whole time. As Patricia mentioned, deep disagreements remain in the area of human rights, and Cuban President Raul Castro is demanding the U.S. turn over its Guantanamo military base before relations can be restored, and this is something the U.S. says is not happening.
It's not happening.
Right.
I understand that.